I was 23 when the call came in. My mother, an experienced sailor who loved solo ocean voyages, had gone missing during a storm off the coast of Maine. They found her sailboat a week later, empty, bobbing near an uninhabited island. No blood, no distress signals, nothing. Just her phone, her journal, and a mug of half-finished coffee in the cabin. The Coast Guard ruled it an accident, bad weather, capsized, presumed drowned. But something about it never sat right with me. My mom wasn't just some hobbyist, she was meticulous, safety-obsessed. She logged everything, double-checked her weather reports, always kept 2 radios. I spent weeks combing through her things, looking for a clue she might have left behind. But all I had were questions. 5 years passed. Grief became this dull weight I carried around. I moved cities, took a job in Portland, tried to rebuild. And then, 2 months ago, my best friend Emma invited me to visit her hometown for her brother's wedding in a small coastal village in Nova Scotia. I almost said no. Between work stress and the haunting date of my mother's anniversary, I wasn't in the mood for celebration. But I went anyway. Nothing prepared me for what I saw. The village was postcard perfect, tiny harbor, weathered docks, a lighthouse that blinked lazily in the distance. Emma's family home sat on a hill, surrounded by pines and the smell of salt. Everything felt still, safe, quiet. It was the kind of place you'd never expect to hold secrets. The day before the wedding, I wandered into the local market to grab coffee. That's when it happened. I saw her. She was standing by the produce section, holding a basket of apples and chatting with the store owner like she belonged there. Same salt and pepper hair, same profile, same scar above her eyebrow from a bike crash when I was 7. But the name tag on her windbreaker said Marie, and her voice was softer, slower. My stomach dropped. She turned slightly, and for a split second, our eyes met. She looked straight at me. Not through me. At me. And something flickered across her face, recognition? Panic? It was gone just as quickly. She turned back to the apples. I didn't move. My mind was screaming, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear myself think. It wasn't just a resemblance. I knew my mother. That was her. And she was alive. Living under a new name. In my best friend's hometown. And pretending she didn't know me. I left the store without buying anything. I don't even remember walking out. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped my keys trying to unlock the rental car. The whole way back to Emma's house, I kept replaying the moment, her face, the way she glanced at me like a stranger, then turned away like it meant nothing. I didn't say a word to Emma. What could I even say? Hey, I just saw my dead mom in your town buying apples. I needed proof. Something real. Because part of me still wondered if I was losing it. Grief can mess with your head. Maybe it was just someone who looked like her. So the next morning, I woke up early and drove back to the market, parked across the street, and waited. An hour passed. Then 2. I was about to give up when I saw her again. Same windbreaker. Same walk. This time, she went into a bookstore 2 doors down. I followed. She stood at the counter, chatting with the clerk, then disappeared behind a curtain labeled staff only. That's when I noticed the sign above the register, Meet Marie, our in-house historian and local author. Ask about her memoir. Memoir? I asked the clerk when Marie would be available to talk about her book. He said she usually came back out around lunch. I thanked him and walked out, my heart pounding. If she had written a memoir, maybe it had answers. I needed to read it. Now. I spent the next hour pacing the sidewalk, hard in my throat, until I worked up the nerve to go back in and ask for a copy of her book. The clerk handed it to me with a smile, thin paperback, simple cover, titled The Forgotten Shore. The author listed on the front, Marie D. Calloway. That name meant nothing to me. But the dedication inside nearly knocked the air out of my lungs. To A, may the sea be kinder to you than it was to me. A, as in me. My first initial. My mother used to sign all her birthday cards like that, love you always, Mom. A. I bought the book, thanked the clerk with what must have looked like a dazed smile, and walked back to the car in a trance. I read the whole thing in 2 hours, parked under a tree with the windows cracked. It was fiction. But barely. The story followed a woman who faked her death during a storm. Who staged her own disappearance. Who left behind a family because she believed her presence was doing more harm than good. The plot was cloaked in metaphors, a storm too heavy to weather, a past that pulled like undertow, but there was no mistaking it. It was her. Every word. Every paragraph. It was my mother telling me, in her own twisted way, that she'd left on purpose. And she never planned to come back. I drove aimlessly after that, looping the same roads until my gas light came on. I didn't want to go back to Emma's. I didn't want to talk to anyone. My hands were still shaking, the book resting in the passenger seat like a loaded weapon. She had faked everything. The Coast Guard search, the empty boat, the grief she left behind, she'd orchestrated it all. And for what? To reinvent herself as some soft-spoken historian in a sleepy fishing village? I couldn't wrap my head around it. I couldn't decide what hurt more, that she left, or that she never once looked back. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept flipping through the book, searching for more hidden confessions. She mentioned the daughter with fire in her bones, and how she knew letting go would haunt her forever. But it was all poetic, cowardly. No real answers. Just excuses, wrapped in prose. And then something even stranger happened. Emma knocked on my door around midnight, said someone had called the house for me, an old woman named Marie, asking for the girl who looked like someone she used to know. Emma thought it was a weird wrong number. I knew better. My mother had recognized me in the market. She knew. And now, she was reaching out. But why now? After 5 years? I stared at Emma, nodded slowly, and asked her to write down the number. Because no matter how furious, how heartbroken I felt, I had to call her. I stared at the number for what felt like hours. I'd pick up the phone, then put it down again. My brain kept swinging between two thoughts: she abandoned me and I need to hear her voice. When I finally dialed, my hands were clammy and my heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the ringing. She answered on the second ring. Just one word: hello? That voice, it was her. Calmer, older maybe, but still her. My mother. And for a moment, I forgot how to speak. My throat closed up. I couldn't breathe. She didn't ask who it was. She just waited. I finally managed to say her name. Not Marie. Her name. Silence. Then she exhaled. A long, trembling sigh like she'd been holding her breath for 5 years. She asked if I was okay. Not where I was. Not what I'd been doing. Just if I was okay. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I asked her instead, why? Why she left. Why she let us mourn her. Why she disappeared into a life of lies while I was stuck identifying her clothes from a Coast Guard report. She didn't give me a straight answer. Just said she thought we'd be better off. That she had demons. That she didn't want to drag us down with her. I told her she didn't save us. She broke us. And then, she said something that knocked the air out of my lungs. I didn't expect to see you here. I thought you'd forgotten me by now. As if she wanted to be forgotten. She didn't hang up. Neither did I. We just sat in silence, on opposite sides of a lie that had lasted 5 years. And in that stillness, something shifted. I realized this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The next morning, she asked to meet. She said there was a dock behind the old cannery, tucked away where the lobster boats rarely went. No one goes there anymore, she said. It's quiet. It felt like the most appropriate place in the world for her, hiding in plain sight, somewhere forgotten. I didn't tell Emma where I was going. I just slipped out before sunrise, the book stuffed in my coat pocket, her name burning in my chest like a bruise. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on the edge of the dock, legs dangling over the water, same windbreaker, same posture. She didn't look up right away. Just kept watching the ocean, like it owed her something. When she finally turned, I saw it. Guilt. Relief. Regret. All of it swirling behind her eyes like a storm waiting to break. I stood there for a while. I didn't move. I didn't speak. Neither did she. It was strange, seeing her so close after so long. She looked like someone I used to dream about, familiar, but not quite real. Her hair was longer now, streaked with gray. Her skin was weathered from the sea. She looked older. Sadder. Softer. I sat down beside her. We didn't touch. Just sat. Then, in the quiet, she said, I was never meant to be a mother. The words hit like a punch. But I stayed silent. She told me everything. The storm was real. But the accident wasn't. She had planned the trip for months, chose a spot where she knew the currents would carry her boat off course. Left just enough behind to make it believable. Then swam to shore under cover of darkness and walked into a new life she'd built in secret for over a year. I asked why she never came back. She said, because I didn't think I deserved to. I wanted to scream. To cry. To rage. But I didn't. Instead, I asked her the one thing I'd been dying to know since the second I saw her. Did you ever miss me? She didn't answer right away. But when she finally did, her voice cracked. Every single day. And for the first time since she vanished, I believed her. We sat on that dock until the sky turned pink and the water stilled. She talked more after that, about the years before she left, the guilt, the depression, how she used to cry in the shower so I wouldn't hear. How she convinced herself that walking away would spare us both, that I'd have a better chance without her mistakes in the way. She didn't expect to survive the first year. Said every day was a battle not to come back, not to write, not to call. But she believed she had to disappear completely or she'd ruin me. That staying was selfish. I told her the truth, disappearing was worse. She didn't fight me on it. She just nodded. And then she handed me something I didn't expect, her journal. The real one. Not the sanitized one she left behind in the boat, but the one she kept all those years while pretending she didn't exist. It was thick, filled with dated entries, some pages stained with water damage or tears. She said she started writing it the night she left, and hadn't stopped since. She didn't ask me to forgive her. Didn't ask me to understand. Just told me to read it when I was ready. That hurt more than anything. Because it meant she hadn't expected a second chance. Even now, with me sitting beside her, she wasn't reaching for redemption. She was still preparing to lose me all over again. And that broke something in me I didn't even know was still intact. Because for the first time in 5 years, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was just tired of not knowing. Tired of feeling like her death was the full stop in a sentence that never got finished. And now? Now I finally had the rest of the story that night. I locked myself in the guest room at Emma's and opened the journal. The first entry was dated the day she vanished. She'd written about the storm in detail, how the rain soaked her clothes, how she'd nearly lost her nerve before jumping overboard. She described swimming toward the rocks, terrified, half hoping the ocean would drag her under so she wouldn't have to live with what she was doing. But it didn't. She made it to shore, numb and shaking, and started walking north. For 3 days, she slept in abandoned cabins and under bridges before finally crossing the border into Canada. From there, she vanished into a new identity. The entries after that were harder to read. They swung between hope and despair. She followed my life from a distance, had contacts who told her when I graduated college, when I got my first job. She knew I was safe, and that became her only excuse for staying away. She wrote about birthdays, holidays, and dreams where she heard my voice calling her name. And in every one of them, I was still 7 years old. The deeper I read, the more I realized she never truly left me behind. She just couldn't face the version of herself she thought I saw. And in her twisted way, she believed disappearing was the only gift she had left to give. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Because all these years, I thought she died not knowing how much I loved her. But she did know. She just didn't think she deserved it. And that made the grief so much heavier than before. Because now, it came with truth. 2 days later, I asked her to meet me at the same dock. She looked surprised when I showed up, journal in hand, but she didn't ask questions. Just waited. I told her I didn't forgive her, not yet. That what she did shattered something in me that may never fully come back. I told her about the therapy, the nightmares, the numb years where everything felt like static. But I also told her this. I wasn't going to walk away. Because now that I knew she was alive, real, I couldn't pretend she wasn't. She cried then. Not softly. Not gracefully. It was guttural, like something breaking open. She didn't try to explain or justify. She just wept. And I let her. We didn't hug. Not that day. But she asked if she could write me real letters this time. I nodded. And before I left, I said one last thing. If you disappear again, I won't come looking. I won't grieve twice. She promised she wouldn't. Now, back home, the world feels different. Not better. Just heavier. There's a hollow space where the lie used to be, and I'm still figuring out what to fill it with. Sometimes I read a page from her journal before bed. Sometimes I throw it across the room. I don't know if I'll ever introduce her to the rest of my family, or if I'll ever call her mom again. But for the first time in 5 years, I don't feel haunted. She's not a ghost anymore. Just a broken woman who tried to outrun her pain. And for now, that's enough.